Well, I've always taken it seriously. However, now I take it much more seriously just because I know how it affected me.
My perspective is skewed, and I need to acknowledge that out of my own personal experience, which is unique, and the experience of having someone die from this disease on a ventilator in the room beside me in ICU. And then I knew Freddie Saskatchewan, and he actually had an Anglican funeral in a Takakut, and Freddie died in the ICU when I was upstairs.
I'm not sure my opinion on the virus has really changed. I mean, before getting it, I was like, oh, I wouldn't mind having COVID. You know, I want to lose my sense of smell and taste. That would be so much fun. But then having it was like, oh, okay, you were dumb. It's not fun. It's really crappy. And you feel gross, and you will keep feeling gross for a long time after. So don't do that.
I think there's just so many unknowns with it. Like, and even with my release from the hospital, you know, my doctor today is like, you know, we need to talk to infectious control because we still don't know. Like, I don't want to be going home from here and then taking it and maybe I pass it along to the people at the household again, and maybe their symptoms are worse. Like, there's just so many unknowns, and I have just the utmost respect for the healthcare workers and everybody, and like the things that they've had to do to come into my room, and the you know, all the PPE and that I can't even imagine. What they're doing is well, they're saving lives is what they're doing, and it's they do not get the credit that they so much deserve.
Yeah, there's been a major shift in my thinking. I was never a skeptic of COVID. I knew it was serious. I knew, being a teacher, how it's changing our classrooms and the effect it's having on these students, and I really feel for them. But it's definitely made me realize that this virus is serious. I was always someone who thought, oh, you might get a scratchy throat, lose your sense of smell. And no, it floored me. And I'm definitely more aware of, you know, the precautions and the measures put in place. I really feel for the health, you know, our frontline workers.
I think people in my circle are taking things seriously and are following guidelines. And I would hope that other people would see these stories and consider their behavior when it comes to helping to protect, especially vulnerable people, that they would wear their masks, that they would wash their hands and keep a distance. It doesn't hurt to wear a mask. It doesn't hurt to wash your hands. And if you can prevent even just one person from getting sick, it's worth it.
I have concerns. One concern is that as a province and as the citizens of the province, we have not been taking this seriously enough, and people are paying the cost.
I was talking with someone that she had it, and I think when you get it and when you come through it, I'm not quite there yet, but I believe I've turned the corner on it and I'm getting better. There is a sense of the gratefulness and thankfulness and an appreciation for life.
I think we live in a really narcissistic time for some reason. I don't know if it's social media. I don't know what's contributing to it, but, you know, everyone's for themselves. And if everyone would just kind of put aside the politics of whether a mask is political or not, and would just put other people first, regardless of your beliefs, and just like know that it helps and that you can save lives that way.
The sooner we can get rid of it, the better it is. I'm glad that there's vaccines coming in January. I'm glad that there are certain things that are happening in the province, because I'm certainly believe that the business people have to work because they're the ones that pay the workers, and we need the money to go around. But saying that, sometimes the short-term pain is the long-term gain.
I'll be honest, I was like everybody else. I just said, you know what? I just wish I would get this thing so that I could get it over with, because this fear of catching it is driving everyone crazy, and it still is. I don't suggest that to everybody. Please don't go out and lick handrails. It's just not a good thing. You don't want to get this, and the reason why is because you cannot guarantee you're not going to pass it on to somebody that can't handle getting it.
Prior to having COVID and even just going through lockdown, like the feelings of, okay, well, I guess if I only see like one friend at a time, that's okay, right? It's fine. But now, like post having COVID, I see 3 people when I'm not wearing a mask, like my mom, my grandmother, and my best friend. The rest, like even just wearing a mask to my car, like people don't do that, which is so strange to me. Like, we're going through a pandemic where masks help, so why aren't you wearing them?
The numbers in Prince Albert per capita and the numbers in the north per capita and on reserve per capita are never really addressed publicly. I'd love to see someone ask Dr. Shahab and the Minister of Health about that, because often the media, no offense meant, will report the higher numbers in Regina and Saskatoon, but we've often had, it's better relatively now, but only because people become worse, often had higher per capita numbers, much higher per capita numbers in PA. For a while, we had the same numbers as Saskatoon, and we have, I don't know, 1/6 of the population. So I think we need to take it seriously. I was somewhat obsessive about hand sanitizing, and we made masks mandatory in our services back in October before the government did. We closed. So we've been careful, and I've been personally cautious, and I still got it. So I think people need to know it's everywhere, and we have to act like it's everywhere, and unfortunately act like everyone else has it, and we have it.
It's a virus. It's never going to go away, not completely, but if we can get a vaccine, but people have to be patient. And I know they're running out of patience. They're tired of being cooped up. They're tired of not being able to go out and do things. But some things are really not necessary.
I think there's this misconception that if you're not using an ICU bed or you're not using oxygen, that you're not using resources. And I was blown away by how many hours we are on the phone with SHA between contact tracing. And I didn't realize that they call you daily and they check in on your symptoms, sometimes more than once a day if they didn't get enough information. It's hours and hours of time, and time is such a valuable resource. And I can totally see now, having had it and experienced that, how eventually that's going to take valuable time away from other healthcare workers, or other, how that eventually could maybe affect our care in other areas, because it's so much time. So I think probably the biggest thing is, don't assume that because your case isn't serious or you don't wind up in a hospital that you're not using resources, because you definitely are. And that was probably the biggest thing. Even now with my pregnancy, now I have 2 doctors assigned to my pregnancy instead of just one. So now I am needing extra care, and our cases weren't anything crazy. We didn't require anything extra. Like, I think people see that, people see numbers and they think, 99% of people will be okay, but don't assume that that means that you're not, a burden on the healthcare system to some extent.
Why is this a political statement? It shouldn't be a political statement. This is scientific fact. It's been proven. Why is science suddenly not real? Why do we treat science like this is studies? People go to school for years to be a doctor, to be a frontline worker, to be a scientist, to do these studies. Why are people doubting that?
One of my biggest fears, I had told my sister, was this would be I would hate to have this become an illness that I would get every year or something to that effect, the way we get colds and flus and things like that. I would hate to add this to the list, because, with those things, I didn't ever end up in the hospital on oxygen or have pneumonia or those kinds of serious. And I don't even know like they said my heart was enlarged and things like that. Like, I don't know all the effects from this yet that it could have on me in the future. So I take it very seriously.
I'm already thinking about the stuff I'm going to do once we're in the clear. I am going to Hawaii and I am going to put my feet in the sand, and I'm going to fly a kite on the ocean. And that's just something that I'm going to do. It's just, you just start thinking about those things, and nothing else really matters when you're facing something as serious as this. You start really truly appreciating things, and you start thinking about your life and your purpose and why you're here and the time that you have and what you want to accomplish with that time.
I started following the coronavirus stuff kind of right when it started, back when the first part of the mention of the virus happened overseas and started coming, and it's always been a real thing for me. I've seen kind of firsthand what it does to people. It was never local, I guess is a good way to put it. I saw what was happening, but it was always wouldn't happen here. You know, it hasn't got to us yet. Even when we did our first lockdown, I kind of feel like I was late to the party with the spring thing, because my life didn't change at all. I was still going to work. We were still doing the same types of calls, seeing the same people, meeting the same faces, when we were only getting 1-2 cases a day sort of thing. Now that we're ramped up to the 300 case a day kind of limit, it's becoming more real for me. Again, I don't have the story of, you know, I had such trouble breathing, I had to go to the emergency room, I had to get put on a ventilator, things like that, thankfully. But it's really raised the awareness that anyone can get this. I like to think that I'm very well protected from the virus, not only with PPE and things like that, but I'm in that scenario all the time. So I know washing your hands is a habit that I have, keeping things clean, high touch surfaces getting wiped down, things like that. And even taking all the precautions that the government put in place that I just know from my own common sense, I still ended up getting corona from a friend of mine across the room, right? So it's much more accessible than what it used to be. It used to be just the kind of the boogie monster in the shadows, and now it's right here in my living room.